Okay, today I have a guest with me today. I have Shivani Desai. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, the first thing I'm intrigued, where exactly are you from? You are originally from India.
That's correct. So I'm originally from a western part of India called Gujarat. So my hometown is Ahmedabad, which is where my mom's hometown is. But I moved to Singapore when I was just a baby. I think I was 3 months old. So I really have lived in Singapore all my life. But still, when
Hmm,
people ask me where I'm from, I'm always inclined to say India because it's a huge part of my identity.
yeah,
So it's, the best of both worlds.
interesting. So you've always been around Singapore. So this is have you ever been to the States?
I have. I just came last year for the first time. So
Hmm,
I was there in the summer. It's for two reasons. So really the first reason was because I do see myself moving there someday, for acting work, because Singapore is a pretty limited market when it comes to these things.
hmm,
So I just wanted to go to Los Angeles and see if that is a place where I could live someday, see if I would assimilate into the culture, whether the lifestyle fits my needs, my preferences. And the second thing kind of just happened by coincidence, which is that my friends and I had been planning to take a grad trip to the US for several years. Uh, they graduated in the pandemic. I graduated a year before them, which means that our grad trip to the US was long overdue and postponed. So in 2022, when travel restrictions opened up, just so happened that the day I was going to tell my friends that I'm going to Los Angeles by myself on a solo trip, they asked if we should also do our grad trips. It was pure coincidence. And they said, since you're going there, we might as well just go together. So we ended up going to Los Angeles, Vegas, and New York.
cool. So you saw New York as well. Wow.
I did.
That's Oh, wow, those are interesting. So, what did you think about all three of those?
It was fantastic. I think out of the three, Los Angeles probably fit my personal vibe the most. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed the people, the food, the lifestyle, the weather was fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but here in Singapore, we have tropical weather, which means that it's hot 365 days a
Mm,
year. And it occasionally rains. So we don't really get the nice cool breeze that you guys get down in Los Angeles. I
mm,
really like that one the most, but I think I also ended up enjoying Vegas a lot more than I thought I would. I'm not a big party
mm.
person.
Yeah.
And Vegas is like the party capital of the
Yeah.
of the of the world, not just the US.
Yeah.
But yeah, I certainly found a lot of things to enjoy there. I loved going to a lot of the live shows. And I just loved how non-judgmental the place was. It was so accepting of people,
Mm,
regardless of how they looked, how they behaved, how they dressed, everything. I would say New York was probably my least favorite, but I do think I see the appeal of it. I think it has a very unique charm that's kind of an acquired taste. So if you enjoy the hustle and bustle of a city, you're probably more inclined to like New York compared to the other places that I went to. I personally, since I've grown up in a very fast-paced city all my life, I preferred something that was kind of like the opposite vibe. So New York kind of felt like
mm.
Singapore on steroids.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. New York it's like even when you're standing still, it still feels like it's always moving, and it's like I don't know. To me, I could never be a full-time New Yorker. I was there for a long time, but it's just like I like to meditate. I like to relax, and it's really hard to do that in New York because it's just like it's go 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 go. Everything's money
I'm
fast.
with you.
Fast.
I'm with you there, 100%. I'm
Yeah,
also big on yoga and meditation,
yeah,
simply because I don't particularly love exercising. I'm not a very physical, sporty kind of a person, but yoga
mm,
is one of those things that just helps me
yeah,
relax and stay fit at the same time. So I get you when you say that you can never meditate in New York because everything is
yeah,
very go, go, go and fast paced the whole
yeah,
time. But I guess some people have a taste for it. So I see the
yeah. I
appeal.
know
It's just not for me.
it's good. It's just I feel like I could never go back to being there year round. It's like after you leave it, because when the pandemic happened, I left and came back to Charlotte, and I was like, wait a minute, I can breathe again and, think, and I just,
Mhm.
in New York, it felt like you just were always moving forward. And it's just,
Yep.
there's no time to like contemplate and look back. I mean, I tried to do that, but it's just, So tell me about growing up in Singapore.
It was very interesting because of several reasons. The first is that this is a very multicultural, multi-ethnic place. It's kind of like a melting pot of different cultures because it's literally made up of immigrants from all over the world.
Mm,
I would say that there are three races that dominate here, which is Chinese, Malay, and Indians. And then we have a fourth category called others, which is just everybody else. Um, but I think it is a main reason as to why my experience growing up here was so unique, because I found myself in a space where, despite South Asians and Indians being the global majority, I grew up in a space where we were the minority.
mm,
Indian people make up 7% of the population here. So it came with all of the burden and baggage that comes with an ethnic minority in any place in the world. At the same time, I also had access to an education system and a safety and security that I wouldn't have if I would have grown up in South Asia.
mm,
So I would say that it was very dichotomous, where I knew that I was an immigrant and I came with all of the baggage of being, you know, what's the best way to put this? It came with the baggage of having two identities and being split into two. But
mm,
at the same time, I also knew that I had the privilege of resources and tools and systems that I wouldn't have otherwise had. Um,
mm,
the second reason why I would say that my experience growing up was very conflicted and dichotomous was because we are a society and economy that really prizes and prides itself on tech and science and math and all of those good things.
yeah.
And I grew up as an artistic kid, where I didn't understand basic things when it came to science and math. I would often find my eyes kind of glazing over every time we had science and math class in school.
Mm,
And the only areas I really excelled in was when it came to language and drama and things like that. Um, so I would say that one of the flaws of our education system here is that it doesn't create space or have space for students and kids who learn in unconventional ways. And I was one of those kids who learned in unconventional ways. So I would say I struggled throughout my formative years academically. Um,
mm,
just until I went to college where I majored in theater. And that is when things really started taking a turn for me academically, because I was finally doing something that I really loved. And because there was personal
mm,
investment in the subject and in the field that I was pursuing, all of a sudden I turned into like this star student who used to get A's and everything after failing for most of my life. Um, so because of these two reasons, my experience growing up in Singapore has been it's always had two sides to it. And it has been mostly, it has mostly been me trying to kind of strike a balance between those two sides.
mm. So you're kind of like apathetic to school until you found drama in the arts.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
languages do you speak?
I speak four languages. So I speak English, and then my mother tongue, my native mother tongue is Gujarati, which is what we
Mm,
speak at home. I also speak Hindi, which, fun fact, if you grow up as a student in Singapore, taking two languages in school is compulsory. So you can't really weasel your way out of it. So the
yeah.
second language I took in school was Hindi. So I've learned it since I was 7 years old. And a fourth language that I've picked up in the past 3 to 4 years has been Spanish. So now I'm conversational in Spanish.
Wow. Four languages. That's great. I mean, that's great just for an actor speech wise, because there's different sounds that you're not going to
Yeah.
use, and English has its sounds, and so that's great. I read that your parents were kind of against acting, and they wanted you to be a writer or a lawyer.
They did. They absolutely did. I think the writer thing came from the fact that English was the only thing I ever did well in school.
Mm,
So they saw potential there, and they said that, since she's awful at everything else, maybe there could be something she could do with, writing. I don't know if this is common knowledge, but in South Asian families, pursuing anything related to the arts is seen as taboo. It's seen as
Yeah.
very impractical. It's just seen as a downright stupid choice, for the lack of a better word,
Yeah.
because I think most people know that doing something more conventional means you're securing an income and a stable life for yourself. Despite that, my
Yeah.
parents were like, if we had to find something within the realm of art that is still kind of acceptable, then it would be journalism. So they said maybe you could explore doing journalism or writing
Journalism.
or something along those
Yeah.
lines. I know. And you know what? Maybe in another universe, I might have pursued it, because even
Yeah.
in my early days as an actor, I used to write, I used to do freelance writing. So I could see
Mm.
myself doing it, but I just don't think it brings me as much joy as being an artist and being a coach.
Mm.
The lawyer thing was purely a joke. I don't think my parents thought I had it in me to actually go through law school.
I
But they
thought
used
so.
to say, I mean, they did used to say that, she has real habit and tendency of talking back all the freaking time. So they were like, you can make a fantastic lawyer. It was a joke, but at some point in my childhood, I definitely did consider it. But I was a child, so I gave it brief thought, and I was like, yep, not gonna work out for me.
Not gonna work out. So talk a little bit about your love for film, because that's it sounded like that was at an early age. Like, what was it? What captured you?
So I grew up with a very different kind of exposure to films compared to other people my age. I see it among my close friend circle too, that they grew up with, Disney and Pixar movies and, cartoons
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And it's not to say that I didn't watch cartoons, but the bulk of content that I was exposed to growing up was cinema that my parents watched. So
Mm.
because my parents are immigrants, I think a very natural way for them to kind of stay connected to their roots and stay connected to their culture was through film. So while living in a foreign country, I found I still have vivid memories of them watching Hindi movies and Indian movies whenever they had the chance to. So our idea of a weekend outing was always going to the cinemas and watching a Bollywood movie.
Mm.
Which back then, 20 years ago, we would really have only one playing, one to two maximum for months at a time.
Yeah.
And we'd go and watch that. And when we would have time at home, we would buy DVDs and CDs and put them on at home on the weekends for the family to watch. So I grew up watching a lot of Hindi romance films, drama films, action films. And
Yeah.
growing up, I would say even at the age of like just 5 to 6, I've kind of really solidified my love for Indian cinema. Um,
Mm.
I have one of those memories that's like super foggy. I have a lot of brain fog, which means I don't have a vivid recollection of all of my childhood memories, but I remember so strongly the daily activity I used to do, which is I used to run home from school, chuck my bag in the corner, and I would sit down, finish my homework, eat lunch. And the moment I was done, I would put on a Hindi movie and watch it all by myself. And I would
Mm.
do that every single day. I've been told by my parents that sometimes I used to watch the same movie every day, because it had my favorite actor in it. So
Yeah.
growing up, yeah, that's a kind of film that I was exposed to, very over the top, larger than life Bollywood films. And it's only later in my teenhood that I started exposing myself to Hollywood cinema.
Mm.
And that completely changed my understanding of what film could be like, that it didn't always have to be over the top, colorful musical style, that it could also be very real and very grounded.
Mm. Interesting. Was it easy to access Hollywood films in Singapore?
No, it's I would say it's in fact more difficult to just logistically access Bollywood films
Mm.
as compared to Hollywood. So we have English movies come in cinemas all the time. And there's a
Yeah.
big
Now.
fan base for it over here. Yeah, there's a big fan base for it here. I would say now with the rise of streaming platforms and such in the past maybe 5 to 6 years, going to the cinemas has not been required for people to kind of access
Yeah.
international content, especially the one from Hollywood. Um, but having to access it, if I had to interpret that term a different way, for me, just culturally, it was a little bit difficult to access. There was an adjustment period where I was, struggling to kind of pick up the nuances of the language, even though English was a native language for me by that point. Because it came with like different accents, different verbiage, and just understanding, just having the transition period from watching Bollywood films all of your life and suddenly exposing yourself to a very different type of cinema. So
Yeah.
accessing that took some time, but once I did, I started to enjoy it so much.
Interesting. Interesting. It's a good point that you made that, streaming has really opened the world to just about anything now. Now anybody can enjoy anything. Whereas before, even in America, I can remember, waiting for foreign films to come and, the French films, the Michel Haneke's films, you would get like one, or two. And now
Yeah.
it's like you can see it, you can see anything now
Yeah,
with streaming,
exactly.
you know.
That's
um,
fantastic. I love how this shift to like digital media has completely revolutionized the entertainment industry.
it has. It has. It's made it,
Hmm.
just open. Now
Yeah.
everybody has Netflix. There's a Netflix over there, and it's worldwide. It's just great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, how did the transition to acting come to?
I've been acting all my life since I was a kid. When
Mm,
I was, I think around 6 or 7 years old, we go to primary school, which means first grade over here. And it's compulsory for us in school to take up what they call a co-curricular activity, which
mm,
means it has to be something that you do outside of school time, but within school compounds. So it
mm,
could be things like art, frisbee, volleyball, basketball, dance, anything at all.
mm,
And for the first 4 years of my primary school, I kept hopping from activity to activity because I couldn't find out what it is that I liked. I went from art to netball to, gymnastics to dance. And then it's just, I couldn't understand until I reached, I think I hit the age of 9 or 10. And then
mm,
I decided to try out the co-curricular activity, speech and drama. And I felt like I found my home. Um, and since then, I just haven't been able to let go of it. So throughout school, I always did drama as my co-curricular activity, up until the age of 18, which is when we graduate junior college and we are about to go into college. So from the age of 10 to 18, I did drama in school, and then it just felt like the natural path for me to also major in it in college. So then I majored in theater, and after graduating from college, I went to film school in London because I
mm,
realized that my education in theater in college was very theoretical. It was, I would say, 70% theory, 30% practical. And I was just hungry to learn more of the practical. I felt like I didn't get the specific training that I needed as an actor in college. So I went
mm,
to film school in London. I took a course for acting for film. And after I graduated from film school, I graduated into the pandemic. So coming back to Singapore from London, the entertainment industry had really kind of shut down. And it
mm,
was tough for me to navigate the space and find acting jobs. So despite having, a resume chock full of training, it was impossible to find opportunities. And so I started teaching full time instead. I had
mm,
been teaching part time since I was 17. So it felt like the natural
mm,
path for me to take to just teach full time. I did it for a year. I taught full time, and then I decided it's just my calling for acting was too strong to ignore. So I quit my teaching job. I bought myself out of the contract that I had signed with my teaching job. It was a huge payout, but I knew that it was worth it for an acting career. And then
mm,
after that, I took some downtime around 2 months to figure out what I wanted with my acting career. And then I kind of just dove into auditioning and, applying for roles and seeing where that
Yeah.
took me. Um, just by a sheer stroke of luck, my first acting job came from a batchmate from college who also majored in theater with me. And he was working as a producer on one of a project that he was involved in. And he said, "I'd like you to come in and audition for something. I think you'd be perfect for it." And then that's how I landed my first acting job. It was also my first
Wow.
network TV credit. So straight off the bat, went with a bang.
So
And
was
yeah,
this in Singapore or was this in London?
this was in Singapore. I had already moved
This
back
was
to
in
Singapore
Singapore.
by this point. Yeah, so this was
Okay.
in Singapore. And yeah, ever since then, it's just, I've just been doing it full throttle, full time,
Yeah.
up until 6 months ago when I started my own actor coaching business.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to well, I wanted to jump into that a little bit. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the abundant actor blueprint that you started.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've since rebranded the Abundant Actor Blueprint to the Full-Time Acting Accelerator. So same
Ah,
program, we just changed the name because it felt a lot more accurate, just true to what I teach. And just for the lack of a better word, it felt less wishy-washy. To
yeah.
me, it's like I know that this is what I want. This is what I teach my students how to kind of transition to a full-time career in acting. So that's what I decided to call it.
Mm,
This is a program, it really is my baby because for me, it's a whole concept, foundation, and thought for this program has come from my own lived experience as an actor who lives in a non-major market. Singapore is such a limited market when it comes to actors and artists that I faced a very unique set of challenges that I realized many other actors in the world who live in bigger markets like Los Angeles, New York, London, Atlanta don't. I would say Mumbai is also another huge market and where actors don't face the same problems that I do. And I just realized that if I'm facing these issues, there's no chance that other actors in other smaller markets aren't also facing these same problems. So I decided to kind of really narrow in and focus on what were the specific issues that I was encountering that I realized actors in bigger markets don't encounter. And I wanted to fix them because as an actor myself, the first solution I turn to when I used to encounter these issues is to seek help from coaches overseas. We don't have a lot of acting coaches here in Singapore who focus on
mm,
the business of acting. Um, so I thought, let me talk to coaches in other markets and see how they can help me. And while I think that these coaches are doing a fantastic job, the
mm.
ones that I worked with, because they're based in larger markets, is the kind of expertise and value that they bring to the table is very much suited for actors who live in these major markets. So compared
Yeah.
to me, if an actor, let's say staying in Los Angeles, was taking a program with Coach ABC, they could really take the information they learned and run with it and implement it. Whereas I found myself in this sticky spot of being like, now I have access to all this great information that this acting coach in Los Angeles has taught me and I don't know what to do with it because I can't apply it to my unique circumstances. I don't have the resources or the infrastructure here in Singapore to apply this information. Um,
Mm,
just because the geographical context is so different, if I had to
yeah.
outline some differences off of the top of my head, um, having an agent or manager is so important in Los Angeles and New York and it's also something that's very possible for you to have because there's so many agencies that you can,
Yeah.
kind of shop around. Whereas here, we probably have a handful. I can think of like 4 or 5 at the top of my head
Mm,
that exist here, and all of them are at max capacity, which means that they're not taking on any new clients. So any actors entering this industry now find themselves in a spot where they don't have representation, they don't have access to those bigger jobs that you can only get via representation. So this is just one of the many differences between a major market and a non-major market. So because I was faced with all of these unique challenges, I thought I'm going to find a way to fix them. And once I found a way to fix it, I want to teach it to other people so that I can get them out of this pickle that they're in. I spoke
Yeah.
to lots of actors all over the world, around 20 to 22. I outlined all of their major concerns, and I chose their top 5 to 6 concerns that I could solve. And I packaged it into the program that is called the Full-Time Acting Accelerator.
Mm.
So the first thing that we tackle is, mindset problems. So I've had my own personal experience with anxiety and
Yeah.
depression, and I think that
You
kind of, yeah,
you
the
talked
thing that,
about coming out of that. Um,
yeah,
what
exactly.
yes, what were some of the steps that you did to come out of that? Because I imagine that was kind of the blueprint for, hence the name, the original name, for for your program. Is that
Hmm.
because you're talking about mindset?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the first step is just recognizing that you're not well. I don't think
Mm.
it's any coincidence that I recognized I was not well in the downtime I took after I quit my full-time acting job, because all of a
Yeah.
sudden I had all this quiet time and quiet headspace that I didn't know what to do with. And that kind of really compels you to come to terms with what you're experiencing. And the next step was kind of seeking professional help. I think this is, I don't know how it works in the US. I hear from
Mm.
friends in the States that that therapy is pretty accessible. And while it's
Yeah.
not cheap, it doesn't completely drain your financial resources. Here, it's very different. It's
Mm.
extremely expensive. People see it as something that only the privileged can afford. And,
Yeah.
getting professional help is really looked down upon. It's just taboo culturally. So
Mm.
just the systems and the processes you have to navigate to get help are very difficult. I
Yeah.
believe I made around 8 to 9 calls in a day before I could get an appointment, just to see somebody. And when I
Wow.
did, um, that really was the kind of key step to unlocking my recovery. When you start seeing somebody, and talking through the things that you're experiencing, I found out, according to my psychiatrist, that I had been, experiencing depression for several months, 8 months to be
Yeah.
specific, but I just hadn't had the time or the headspace to pause and realize that I was experiencing it. So while I was in my teaching job, because it was just such a strenuous job that wasn't aligned with my goals and my
Yeah.
passions and my ambitions, it kind of sent me down that path. And in the 2 months of quiet time that I took after quitting, that's when I really had the chance to understand that this is something that I was experiencing. Sadly, the trigger that allowed me to come to terms with the fact that I needed help was hearing the news of, and a friend from school that had died by suicide. And to
Mm.
me, that was just a wake up call that, like, if I didn't fix myself, I would also be going down
Yeah.
the same path. So yeah, I think what really helped for me in getting help was that it was very scientific. I'm somebody who really enjoys facts. I love,
Yeah.
dealing with things logically and practically. And I loved that my psychiatrist kind of took that approach with me. I have to be honest, I don't think going to a therapist would have worked for me, because I like to therapize my own self.
Yeah.
And I really need somebody to talk to me from a logical standpoint, and that helped for me. So I'm taking a lot of those nuances that I had with my own journey to kind of help actors with the full-time acting accelerator to use scientific processes and do deep mindset work to unlearn a lot of the self-limiting beliefs that they have been conditioned to internalize for years. So, it goes from simple things like actors thinking that they're too fat to be the lead in a rom-com, to
Yeah.
more deep-rooted things like, I don't know if this profession is meant for me, or I don't know if I'm meant for this profession. Somebody just a few days ago told me that the market that I stay in, I just don't think that I'm marketable in the space. I just don't think that my type is marketable in the space. She lives in a country that where the majority race is a different skin color than hers, which means that sometimes she stands out for reasons that she doesn't particularly enjoy. She's not your conventional type of attractive. She's larger, she's dark skinned, and she was
Mm.
having trouble coming to terms with the notion that she could actually make a living off of acting in her market. So those are the kind of things that we tackle in this program as well. It's a small part of the program, but it's the most fundamental foundational step,
Yeah.
which is why we get it out of the way in the start of the program.
Yeah.
And then during the rest of the program, we tackle things like digital branding, marketing, networking, how to build a stable income as an artist. The best part about this program is that I teach them how to become global actors so that they don't feel limited in their smaller markets
Mhm.
anymore. And then we just end off with a really personalized, what I like to call this a personalized career consultation, where we discuss next steps for them so that I'm not leaving them high and dry at the end of the program.
That's
I want
great.
to make sure that once they leave, they know exactly what they need to do. So if there's any gaps that the program didn't fulfill for them, we fill that in the last week. For instance, if they want to learn how to write, how to reach out to agencies in the future, then we'd spend that last week with them, um, letting them understand what kinds of agencies to reach out to, drafting cover letters to those places, and knowing exactly how to follow up with them. Just, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I one of your previous Instagrams that was interesting to me is you were discussing what to say. Well, it's a little bit more, but January 13th, I think, is around the exact date where you were talking about how when you're reaching out to agents, you shouldn't be like giving them a list of your problems. Be kind of, be honest with them. Be honest
Mm.
with them about what you're after, what you want. And I thought that was great advice that you were
Yeah,
giving for them.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think writing to agencies is a really lost art. People
Yeah.
kind of have settle on the idea of writing a cover letter, which means that it often becomes very stuffy, very, formal. There's no life in it left anymore. And we often
Yeah.
turn it into a laundry list of our best achievements.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I mentioned in that post that you are referring to, we don't want to ever pitch ourselves as a finished product, which is what you oftentimes do when you just come at agents and managers with a laundry list of your best works and your top credits. Um,
Yeah.
the same analogy that I used in that post, if you are an avid gardener, you would be far more excited at the prospect of buying a pack of seeds and planting it and watching the plant grow yourself, as opposed to buying a plant that already is full grown and has flowers and fruit on it. That's
Yeah.
exactly how you need to see agents as there's somebody who are there to support you and guide you along your journey and to really root for you and fight for you. They're going to enjoy watching you grow into the actor that you deserve to be and were always meant to be. If they're going to be less likely to take you on if you've already done, your best work. If you have
Yeah.
peaked, you're pitching yourself as a finished product.
That's great. I mean, because
Yeah.
in America, that's kind of how they're taught. That's kind of how we're taught is to always, oh, I'm perfect already. There's nothing yet. It's nothing I have to learn. I already have it all here. You know,
Yeah.
you just send me out
I
for
face the same
jobs.
thing. Exactly.
So yeah,
I've seen some of those letters myself, and I just
yeah,
stopped to ask, put yourself in their position. Why would they want to sign you? Put yourself
yeah,
in their position. Are you making yourself absolutely irresistible? Instead of talking about your best credits, talk about your purpose, your intention, why you're in this job, what you're hoping to achieve with this job. You're in a sea full of actors who are going to say, these are my best credits, and I've been acting for all my life since I was 8 years old, and I'm super passionate.
yeah,
You're going to stand out if you share your heart and your purpose.
yeah.
That's
You're
how
just gonna
people are going to
say,
remember you.
yeah, you're just gonna say what's basically on your resume already. It's like, well, we already know this. Tell me something you don't
Exactly.
know. You know, it's like when
Exactly.
agents will bring you in. It's like, tell me something other than acting. It's like, well, I do this. It's like, okay, what else do you do?
I
It's
know.
like, no, all I do is acting. It's like, okay, so from morning to noon, that's all you do is acting. Give me a break. It's like
Exactly.
you have
I often
friends.
tell my friends, exactly. I often tell my friends that doctors, lawyers, and actors are the three professions in this world where it's like their day starts with their job and their night ends with their job, and the only thing that they do in their lives is their job. And
Yeah.
while lawyers and doctors kind of have their hands tied, where it really like the hours correspond to just just the rigor of the job, for
Yeah.
actors we have the privilege of creating space in our lives, just be a human person, and to
Yeah.
have things outside of work and acting. Because we're all three-dimensional people. Why is it that we
Yeah.
just reduce ourselves to our jobs? And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that acting is just a job, it's a craft, it's a way of life. But at the end of the day, it's still something that you do for work. And you don't want people to just see you for your work.
Yeah, you don't just come in there with like, okay, here it is. Just do this.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
I'm, it's, I don't know if you've ever been to one of those workshops where, the first question they'll ask a casting director is, what are your pet peeves? And it's like, there's no rules in this business. Why do you want to tell them what you don't want? It's like, tell us, maybe that might be their pet peeve, but the way you
Mhm.
did it is different. It's like
Yeah.
we get so stuck in these, we try to make these rules with acting, and it's like, no, it's the place where there aren't supposed to be
Mhm.
rules. It's supposed to be
I
free for
agree.
all. It could be anything. You could say nothing and still book the job.
There you go.
You couldn't get that, as a lawyer. You stood up there and was like, get out.
Yeah. I agree.
Whereas, yeah,
Absolutely.
so that's great that you're, starting with that. Are you kind of talking to them in are you using some kind of indirect hypnosis? Are you
No, no,
meditation?
not
No,
at all.
no.
Not at all. It's purely scientific work where it's like a lot of workshops and trainings I've attended in the past approach the idea of self-limiting beliefs as something that you need to get over or
Yeah,
suppress. And nobody really talks about how you need to take it for what it is, reframe it so that it becomes a self-empowering belief.
yeah,
You need to keep the root of it and the essence of it the same. So for instance, if somebody tells me, I'm too old and it's too late for me to have success as an actor, you can't ask them to discount the fact that they feel too old. So a lot of the times I've seen this be approached is people telling actors that you're not too old. It's not too late.
yeah,
But that's so simplistic. Instead, you need to acknowledge the fact that yes, you are old. And it's true
yeah,
that you might be out of your prime. So we would reframe this as while you might be older than a lot of your peers, you get better with age as an actor.
yeah,
You've undergone more life experiences, more smiles, more challenges, more troubles, more obstacles, more high moments, more low points than somebody who's 25 years old or somebody who's 18. And you're going to be able to bring all of that life experience and complexity into any role you play better than them. So you being old is an asset to you and not a limitation. That is how we would reframe it.
that's
Just an actor I worked with last week was like, I'm 30 years old and the Stranger Things kids have already like made enough bank to kind of retire right now at the age of 18. And I was like, well, yeah, but the Stranger Things kids don't have your life experience. They haven't gone through all of the trials and the tribulations that you have in your 30-year journey. And
yeah.
she just had to kind of take a moment to pause and be like, well, I didn't look at it that way. And sometimes the obvious is right in front of us, but we just need to they just need that push to kind of see it.
I like the way you're doing that. Instead of just saying,
Mhm.
okay, no, 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 you're not too old. You're reframing it so that psychologically it'll get to them, as opposed to just being like, no, what are you? You're an idiot. This is it. It's like, no, here's how you can look at it.
Yeah.
I think you're right. This if you look at the Stranger Kids, I mean, Orson Welles made an Academy Award winning film at the age of 19. I mean, you can't compare yourself to every other
Yeah.
person that does it. I mean, I think that's the danger of the culture of like, we have all this information, we can read about every actor, and then subtly you can like start comparing yourself to those people and being like, well, I didn't do that. Well, I didn't do that. It's like, yeah, but you're not. them, and don't do that. You're almost making
Yeah,
a block that
exactly.
is gonna just, it might not, you might not show it in the audition room, but subconsciously it's there, and you're gonna feel
Yes.
it. I mean, there's that part in La La Land where, she comes in
Mm,
and, she says one line and like, okay, thank you. It's like, no, no, I can do it
yeah,
again. It's,
I
it's
love
like,
that scene.
I thought that movie did such a good job of like showing you what it feels like to be an actor in the room and just
Yeah,
reading for like a
yeah.
5 line thing.
Mhm,
So yeah.
mhm.